Welcome to Scripture Lamp. Today, we'll gently unfold the story of Emmaus, the unseen journey with the risen Christ. I invite you now to find a comfortable space, relax your body, and quiet your mind. Allow yourself to settle in as we begin. Just breathe, get comfortable, and enjoy this peaceful narrative. As the last light of the day softened over the Judean hills, two weary travelers walked a dusty road, their steps a quiet rhythm in the twilight. Whispers of a recent sorrow, of hopes that seemed to fade with the setting sun, lingered in the air between them. They carried the weight of unanswered questions, unaware that a gentle, guiding presence was even now drawing near, ready to illuminate their unseen journey. The late afternoon sun, already mellowing, cast long shadows eastward as two figures trudged from Jerusalem. The road beneath their feet was a ribbon of ochre dust, churned by countless travelers, now settling in the quiet of a Sabbath evening drawing near. 7 miles lay between them and the village of Emmaus, a journey that usually offered a measure of peace. But today it felt like an escape, a desperate retreat from the overwhelming sorrow that had engulfed the holy city. The air, still warm from the day's heat, seemed to vibrate with their hushed, urgent voices, their conversation the only sound breaking the rhythmic crunch of their sandals. Cleopas, his face etched with a profound weariness, walked beside his companion. Their steps were heavy, deliberate, each movement a testament to the weight upon their hearts. They spoke of everything that had transpired in Jerusalem, replaying the last few days like a tragic, inescapable drama. The horrific spectacle of the crucifixion, a brutal act they had witnessed or heard recounted in agonizing detail, hung over their words like a shroud. The image of the Nazarene, their teacher, their hope, gasping his last breath on a Roman cross, was seared into their minds, a wound that festered with every silent mile. The dream they had nurtured, the fervent belief that he was the one to redeem Israel, now felt like a cruel deception, a magnificent edifice of hope crumbling into dust. And then the women, Cleopas murmured, his voice raw with a mixture of disbelief and a fragile, almost dangerous flicker of something akin to hope, quickly stifled. They went to the tomb at dawn, found it empty. Empty, can you imagine? His companion nodded, eyes fixed on the dusty path ahead, seeing not the road, but the bewildering scene described by Mary Magdalene and the others. The guards gone, the stone rolled away, an absence where their Lord's body should have been. It was an anomaly too profound to dismiss, yet too fantastical to fully grasp in their grief-stricken state. They had heard the women's frantic, breathless reports, stories of angels and visions declaring him alive. Peter and John had run to confirm the emptiness, only to return with no explanation, no body, no risen Christ. Just baffling, contradictory fragments that served only to deepen the chasm of their confusion. Their minds, clouded by grief and the shock of recent events, struggled to reconcile these incredible tales with the grim reality of the cross. Their fervent expectation that Jesus would be the deliverer, the Messiah, who would break the Roman yoke and restore their nation, lay utterly shattered. Each step away from Jerusalem was a step further into a desolate landscape of unanswered questions, their hearts heavy with a desolation that felt as vast and empty as the very tomb they spoke of, leaving them adrift in a sea of profound despair. The late afternoon sun cast long, weary shadows ahead, mirroring the gloom that clung to their very souls. Dust kicked up by their sandals mingled with recent horrors, a fine, gritty film settling over their clothes and hearts. Their conversation, a low, continuous murmur, was a litany of despair, replaying every agonizing detail of Jesus' arrest, trial, and crucifixion. Each word was a heavy stone, further burying the hopes they had once so fervently held. The perplexing reports of the empty tomb and angelic visions, far from bringing comfort, only added layers of confusion to their already profound sorrow. They walked, heads bowed, consumed by the magnitude of their loss. It was amidst this shroud of grief that a stranger drew near. He appeared almost imperceptibly, a quiet figure from the road behind them. He fell into step beside them, his presence initially unnoticed, then felt as a subtle shift in the rhythm of the road. For a time, he walked in companionable silence, an unknown shadow in their shared despair, allowing their lament to continue unbroken. Then his voice, calm and gentle, a soft current in the turbulent stream of their thoughts, finally broke through. "What is this discussion you are holding with one another as you walk?" he inquired, his tone free of judgment, simply curious. The question stopped them dead in their tracks. They turned, their faces a canvas of profound sadness and bewilderment, their red-rimmed, distant eyes finally focusing on the man beside them. How could anyone be so unaware? Cleopas, perhaps the elder of the two, spoke first, his voice tinged with raw incredulity. "Are you the only visitor to Jerusalem who does not know the things that have happened there in these days?" he asked, the implication clear. Surely everyone knew. The enormity of their collective tragedy, he assumed, must echo through every street. The stranger simply looked at them, his gaze patient and unwavering, inviting them to elaborate. "What things?" he asked, his two simple words opening a floodgate for their pent-up sorrow. And so they began to recount, pouring out the very story that had shattered their world. "Concerning Jesus of Nazareth," Cleopas began, his voice thick with the weight of loss. He was a prophet, mighty in deed and word before God and all people. He paused, remembering the crowds, the miracles, the teachings that had once filled them with such conviction. "But our chief priests and rulers," the companion interjected, the bitterness palpable, "delivered him up to be condemned to death, and they crucified him." The brutal finality of the cross hung between them, a stark image imprinted on their minds. "But we had hoped," Cleopas continued, his voice dropping to a near whisper, laden with profound and aching disappointment, "that he was the one who was going to redeem Israel." The past tense had hoped volumes of their present despair. "And besides all this," he added, detailing further layers of their confusion, "it is now the third day since these things happened." "Moreover," Cleopas went on, explaining the bewildering reports from that morning, "some women of our company amazed us. They were at the tomb early this morning, and when they did not find his body, they returned saying they had even seen a vision of angels who said he was alive. Some of those with us went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but him they did not see." His words trailed off, leaving the road silent, save for the soft scuffing of feet. The empty tomb was not a sign of life, but an agonizing riddle, an absence that only amplified their grief, leaving them suspended between horror and incomprehensible wonder, with no comfort in sight. The stranger's question, so simple yet profound, seemed to unlock a dam within Cleopas. He stopped, turning fully to face their companion, the dust motes dancing in the afternoon light around his burdened shoulders. His voice, heavy with disillusionment, began to paint a picture of loss. "Concerning Jesus of Nazareth," he began, his gaze distant, perhaps seeing the scenes unfold once more in his mind's eye. "A prophet, mighty in deed and word before God and all the people. We saw him, heard him. He spoke with authority, healed the sick, cast out demons. The hope he ignited within us, it was like the dawn breaking after a long, dark night. We believed in him. The crowds followed him. The sick found solace. The blind saw. The lame walked. He was a light, a promise for our broken land. But then, our chief priests and rulers delivered him up to be condemned to death, and they crucified him." Can you imagine the shock, the terror? To see the one you believed in, the one who spoke of a kingdom of God, hanging brutally on a tree between two common criminals under the glare of the Roman sun? The stench of blood and fear still clings to those memories, like the dust to our sandals. "And we," Cleopas continued, his voice cracking slightly, "we had hoped that he was the one who was going to redeem Israel, that he would free us, truly free us. But it is now the third day since all these things happened. 3 days. The hope, it's not just gone. It's been shattered, like a vessel dropped on stone." Yet, that is not even the full measure of our confusion. Moreover, some women from our company astounded us. Early this morning, they went to the tomb, and when they did not find his body, they came back, reporting that they had even seen a vision of angels who said that he was alive. Can you imagine such a tale whispered in the shadow of such a profound defeat? And some of those who were with us went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but him they did not see. So here we are, Cleopas concluded, gesturing vaguely with a heavy hand, walking this road, weighed down by what we know and utterly bewildered by what we've heard. The grief is absolute, but the mystery gnaws at our very souls, a persistent, unsettling hum beneath the silence of our despair. The stranger had listened, his gaze steady, absorbing the raw grief and bewildered confusion that poured from the two men. The dust of the road seemed to settle with their sorrow. Then his voice, calm and warm, yet resonant with an authority that hushed the very air, broke the silence. He did not dismiss their pain, but rather he challenged their understanding. "O foolish ones," he began, "and slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have spoken." His words, though a gentle rebuke, carried no sting of condemnation, but rather the deep sadness of one who sees a path clearly, while others stumble in shadow. The disciples, startled, perhaps a little defensive at first, found themselves listening intently to this unexpected wisdom. The evening sun began its slow descent, casting long shadows across the fields, mirroring the dimness that still clouded their understanding. He continued, his voice a steady, guiding current. Was it not necessary that the Christ should suffer these things and enter into his glory? He presented a paradox that seemed to defy logic, yet held an undeniable truth within its phrasing. The very suffering that had crushed their hopes was, in fact, the predetermined path to an unimaginable glory. This wasn't a failure, but a fulfillment, not an end, but a necessary passage. His words began to dismantle the walls of their grief, brick by brick, not by erasing the pain, but by reframing its ultimate purpose. They felt a subtle shift, a crack in the hardened shell of their sorrow, allowing a flicker of light to penetrate. Then, as the sky began to deepen from azure to amethyst, the stranger embarked on a journey through time itself. Moses, with the very dawn of God's covenant with his people, he began to unroll the ancient scrolls before their mind's eye. His voice painted pictures in the dusty air, conjuring images from Genesis to Deuteronomy, revealing how every sacrifice, every promise, every whispered prophecy in the wilderness pointed forward. He spoke of the Passover lamb, not merely as a historical event, but as a shadow cast by a greater reality yet to come. He spoke of the serpent lifted in the wilderness, of the manna from heaven, of the rock that gave water, each a thread woven into the vast tapestry of God's redemptive plan. and from Moses he flowed seamlessly into all the prophets. Isaiah's suffering servant, bearing the iniquities of many, no longer seemed a distant, abstract figure, but a vivid, urgent portrait being unveiled before their very eyes. Jeremiah's broken covenant, Daniel's visions of kingdoms, Zechariah's pierced one, these fragmented prophecies, scattered like ancient stones across Israel's history, were now being gathered and reassembled by his profound insight. He revealed how these texts, often read in synagogues with familiar reverence, but little comprehension of their ultimate climax, were not merely historical accounts or moral teachings. They were interconnected signposts, each proclaiming the same singular, earth-shattering truth, the story of the Christ, his suffering, and his glory. Their hearts, once heavy with despair, began to stir, a slow, wondrous warmth spreading through their chests. The scriptures, once a source of confusion, now resonated with sudden, breathtaking clarity. The journey's end arrived sooner than their hearts desired. The village of Emmaus, a cluster of homes nestled amidst rolling hills, emerged into view as the twilight softened the landscape. The cool evening air began to settle, carrying the scent of hearth fires and damp earth. As they reached the edge of the village, the stranger made as if to continue his journey, perhaps to the next town or further into the deepening night. But Cleopas and his companion, their hearts still burning from his words, could not bear the thought of him leaving. "Stay with us," they urged him, their voices imbued with a genuine plea. "For it is toward evening, and the day is now far spent." The sincerity of their invitation, perhaps a flicker of a deeper, unarticulated longing, persuaded him. He turned and accompanied them into the humble dwelling, where a simple meal awaited. The table was set, a common scene of evening respite. As they reclined together, it was not one of the disciples who took the customary role of host. Instead, the stranger, with an unassuming authority that now, in the lamp's soft glow, seemed perfectly natural, reached for the bread. His hands, which had so recently gestured through the ancient texts, now performed an act of profound familiarity. He took the loaf, holding it with a gentle reverence, and looked upwards. A quiet blessing was uttered, a deeply felt grace spoken over their shared sustenance, echoing ancient traditions. Then, with deliberate motion, he broke the bread. The simple sound of the crust yielding under his touch resonated in the quiet room, and he began to give it to them. It was then, in that singular act, that gesture so reminiscent of another meal, another night, another shared blessing. The veil, which had obscured their vision for hours, was rent. Their eyes, once slow to perceive, were suddenly, irrevocably opened. The features of the stranger rearranged themselves, not morphing, but rather revealing the truth that had been veiled. The face, the eyes, the very essence of the one beside them was undeniably him. the risen Christ, the one whose absence had shattered their world. Recognition flooded their senses, a powerful torrent of understanding and awe. But as their gaze met his, as the truth settled irrevocably into their astonished minds, he vanished. Like a breath exhaled, like a wisp of morning mist, he was gone. The space he occupied was suddenly empty, leaving behind only the broken bread, the quiet echo of his blessing, and the thrumming silence of a revelation too profound for words. The silence in the small room was absolute, profound. The empty space where the stranger had been, a single piece of broken bread lying untouched on the coarse wooden table, bore witness to an impossible truth. Cleopas and his companion sat frozen, their hands still outstretched from receiving the blessed bread, their gaze fixed on the vacant chair, then on each other. A shiver, not of cold, but of holy awe, traced its way down their spines. The dust motes, dancing in the fading lamplight, seemed to hang suspended, caught in the wake of the miraculous. A breath, slow and trembling, escaped Cleopas. He looked into his companion's eyes, seeing there the same dawning, incredulous understanding that now surged through his own soul. Did not our hearts burn within us while he talked with us on the road, and while he opened to us the Scriptures? The words, a shared revelation, were barely a whisper, yet they thrummed with a resonance that shook the very foundations of their grief. It wasn't just now that they knew. It was a realization that retroactively illuminated every moment of their journey. The warmth, the conviction, the deep stirring in their souls as he had unfolded ancient prophecies. It had been the subtle, undeniable signature of the divine presence all along. The crushing weight of sorrow, which had clung to them like the dust of the road for 3 days, evaporated instantly, replaced by an unstoppable tide of joy. He was not merely a memory, not a tragic figure. He was alive, truly alive. Their eyes had been opened, not just to his face, but to the very truth of existence. The world, once shrouded in despair, now blazed with the light of resurrection. There was no room for doubt, no time for hesitation. Sleep, the comfort of the fire, the remaining meal, all were forgotten. A powerful, urgent conviction propelled them from their seats. The cool evening air that had settled over Emmaus now felt invigorating, a crisp invitation to action. They rose, not with the weary steps of a long journey just ended, but with a renewed vigor, their feet suddenly light, their hearts alight. The 7 miles back to Jerusalem, which had seemed an arduous trek hours before, now beckoned with an irresistible urgency. Back into the twilight they went, their pace swift and determined, retracing every step, but now with a completely different spirit. The shadows lengthened across the Judean hills, but no darkness could touch the radiant joy within them. They imagined the apostles huddled together, perhaps still mourning, still questioning. Oh, the news they carried, the extraordinary, life-altering truth that would transform everything. As they burst into the upper room in Jerusalem, breathless and beaming, they found the 11 and their companions gathered, already buzzing with incredible news. The Lord has risen indeed and has appeared to Simon. A wave of excited murmurs filled the space, yet their own story was still untold. With fervent voices, their hearts overflowing, Cleopas and his companion recounted everything: the long walk, the stranger's patient explanations, the sudden revelation at the table, and the instant disappearance. Their words, vibrant with fresh memory and profound joy, added another, deeply personal testimony to the unfolding miracle, a testament that the risen Christ walked among them, revealing himself in unexpected, unforgettable ways, lighting up the hearts of those who sought him and preparing them for a future beyond all imagining.